Millions of Washington quarters have been spent without a second thought, but what if one of yours deserves a closer look? Welcome back to Change Your Life. Today, we're exploring 3 Washington quarters that collectors continue to search for. 1973 Washington quarter, no mint mark. 1979 Washington quarter, no mint mark. 1965 Washington quarter, no mint mark. These classic quarters feature the iconic eagle reverse design and a copper-nickel clad composition. Most are worn and heavily circulated, but collectors often check them for mint errors, die varieties, and other unusual characteristics. Stay until the end. The final quarter has a fascinating detail that many people overlook. Let's begin with coin number 1. Before you spend another Washington quarter, take a second look. Every year, collectors across the United States discover coins hiding in old jars, inherited collections, bankrolls, and even everyday pocket change that turn out to be far more interesting than they first appeared. While most 1973 Washington quarters are worth only their face value, a small number attracts serious collector attention because of exceptional preservation, genuine mint-made errors, or unusual characteristics that separate them from the millions produced for circulation. That is why experienced numismatists never judge a coin by its appearance alone. Even a dirty, worn, heavily circulated quarter deserves a careful inspection before it is dismissed. Today, we're beginning with the 1973 Washington quarter without a mint mark, one of the most familiar coins in modern American history. At first glance, it may seem like an ordinary piece of pocket change, but this coin tells an important story about the United States during the early 1970s and continues to hold a place in countless collections. The year 1973 was a significant period in American history. The country was dealing with rising inflation, the oil crisis, and major economic changes. Cash remained the primary method of payment for millions of Americans. Every day, Washington quarters passed through grocery stores, gas stations, restaurants, laundromats, parking meters, vending machines, and local businesses. Because they were used so heavily, many examples quickly developed scratches, rim nicks, worn details, and dull surfaces from decades of circulation. The Washington quarter itself first appeared in 1932 to celebrate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The design proved so popular that it permanently replaced the standing Liberty quarter and has remained one of the most recognized coin designs in United States history. Your featured coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. During 1973, Philadelphia circulation quarters did not carry a mint mark, so finding a 1973 quarter without one is completely normal. Many new collectors mistakenly believe the missing mint mark represents an error, but in this case, it simply identifies the coin as a Philadelphia issue. The obverse displays the portrait of George Washington, designed by John Flanagan. Above his portrait appears the word Liberty, while "In God We Trust" is positioned to the left. The date 1973 appears below Washington's bust. This simple but elegant design has represented American coinage for generations. Turning the coin over reveals the classic heraldic eagle reverse. The eagle spreads its wings while holding arrows and olive branches, symbols representing both military strength and peace. Around the design are the inscriptions United States of America, E pluribus unum, and $quarter. This reverse remained on Washington quarters until the state quarters program began in 1999, making it one of the most familiar reverse designs ever produced by the United States Mint. Unlike Washington quarters minted before 1965, the 1973 issue contains no silver. It was struck using a copper-nickel clad composition bonded to a pure copper core. The switch away from silver occurred because rising silver prices made precious metal coins too expensive for everyday circulation. Although some people still believe every older quarter contains silver, a standard 1973 Philadelphia quarter does not. The Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of Washington quarters during 1973. This high production means the date itself is not considered rare. However, rarity is only one factor that influences collector demand. Condition, originality, strike quality, eye appeal, and genuine mint errors often have a much greater impact on desirability. Most surviving examples spent decades changing hands. Many now show flattened hair details on Washington's portrait, smooth eagle feathers, faded lettering, scratches, contact marks, and dark gray surfaces caused by years of circulation. These signs of wear are completely normal and tell the story of a coin that faithfully served American commerce for decades. Collectors usually begin by examining the coin under strong lighting with magnification. They carefully inspect the date, lettering, rim, portrait, and reverse design, searching for anything unusual. One of the first possibilities is a doubled die error. Genuine doubled dies occur during die production and can create noticeable doubling on the lettering or date. True doubled dies are very different from machine doubling, which generally carries much less collector interest. Another desirable mint-made error is an off-center strike. This happens when the blank planchet is not perfectly aligned during striking. If enough of the design remains visible, especially the date, these coins often become highly collectible. Collectors also search for broad strikes, where the retaining collar fails during striking, allowing the coin to expand beyond its normal diameter. A genuine broad strike displays a different appearance than damage caused after circulation. Other interesting mint-made characteristics include die cracks, die chips, retained cuds, and occasionally clipped planchets. Die cracks appear as raised lines because they originate from cracks in the working die. Clipped planchets occur before striking when the blank itself is improperly cut from the metal strip. These authentic production errors are much scarcer than ordinary circulation damage. It is equally important to recognize what does not increase value. Scratches, cleaning, polishing, dents, corrosion, harsh chemical treatment, and damage caused after the coin left the mint are considered post-mint damage. In most cases, these problems reduce collector value instead of increasing it. Original surfaces remain extremely important. Many experienced collectors actually prefer a naturally aged coin over one that has been polished to appear shiny. Cleaning often leaves tiny hairline scratches that permanently change the surface. Once a coin has been harshly cleaned, it can lose much of its collector appeal. Professional grading also plays an important role. Companies such as PCGS and NGC examine coins for authenticity, assign grades, and identify recognized mint errors. Certified coins often attract greater confidence among buyers because trained experts have already evaluated them. When discussing value, it's important to remain realistic. Most circulated 1973 Philadelphia Washington quarters are worth only face value or a modest premium. However, high-grade mint state examples, beautifully toned coins, and professionally authenticated mint errors can sell for significantly more depending on rarity, eye appeal, certification, and current market demand. These values are estimates, not guarantees, and every coin should be evaluated individually. The real excitement of coin collecting is never knowing when an ordinary-looking coin might reveal something extraordinary. A worn 1973 Washington quarter may simply be another piece of pocket change, or it could become the coin that encourages someone to begin exploring the fascinating world of American numismatics. Before spending one, take a closer look. The smallest details are often the ones collectors appreciate the most. The next coin in today's collection is the 1979 Washington quarter without a mint mark, another everyday American coin that millions of people have handled without giving it a second thought. It has been dropped into vending machines, carried in wallets, stored in old jars, and passed through countless cash registers across the United States. To most people, it is simply another quarter worth 25 cents. But experienced collectors know that every older Washington quarter deserves a careful examination because condition, strike quality, and genuine mint-made errors can make an ordinary-looking coin much more interesting than its face value suggests. The year 1979 marked an important chapter in American history. The United States was experiencing high inflation, rising fuel prices, and rapid technological change. Cash remained the most common form of payment, and quarters were among the busiest coins in circulation. Every day, these coins were used for public telephones, laundromats, parking meters, arcade games, vending machines, bus fares, and countless small purchases. Because they changed hands so frequently, most 1979 quarters became heavily worn long before collectors began saving them. This particular coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, and like other Philadelphia circulation quarters of that era, it does not carry a mint mark. Many beginning collectors wonder whether the missing mint mark makes the coin rare. In reality, the absence of a mint mark is completely normal for a 1979 Philadelphia quarter and should not be mistaken for a mint error. The obverse features the familiar portrait of George Washington, designed by sculptor John Flanagan. Across the top appears the word Liberty, while the national motto "In God We Trust" is positioned to the left of Washington's portrait. The date 1979 appears beneath the bust. Although this design had already been in circulation for decades, it remained one of the most recognizable images in American coinage. The reverse displays the classic heraldic eagle, proudly spreading its wings while holding arrows and olive branches. The arrows represent the nation's ability to defend itself, while the olive branches symbolize peace. Above the eagle appears E Pluribus Unum, with United States of America surrounding the design and quarter dollar displayed below. This reverse served Americans for generations before the introduction of the state quarters program in 1999. Like all regular circulation Washington quarters produced after 1965, the 1979 issue is made from a copper-nickel clad composition bonded to a pure copper core. Because of this, a normal 1979 quarter contains no silver, despite the fact that many people assume older-looking quarters are made from precious metal. The Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of Washington quarters in 1979, making it one of the more common dates in the series. However, a large mintage does not mean every surviving example is identical. Time, circulation, storage, and striking quality all influence how collectors evaluate individual coins. Most examples found today are heavily circulated. Washington's hair often appears smooth from years of wear, the eagle's feathers may have lost much of their detail, and the fields frequently display scratches, contact marks, and dull gray surfaces. Some coins also show rim bumps from decades of use. These characteristics are completely normal and simply reflect a long history in circulation. Condition plays a major role in collector demand. While an ordinary worn example may remain worth only face value or a small premium, coins that survive in exceptional mint state condition become much more difficult to locate. Original mint luster, strong strike quality, minimal contact marks, and attractive eye appeal all increase desirability. Collectors also inspect every 1979 quarter for genuine mint-made errors. One of the first things they search for is a doubled die. On an authentic doubled die, portions of the lettering, date, or design may display clear doubling created during die manufacture. This differs from machine doubling, which usually carries little additional value. Another exciting possibility is an off-center strike. If the blank planchet shifted during striking, part of the design may be missing while enough of the date remains visible to identify the coin. Depending on the percentage of the off-center strike and overall eye appeal, these pieces can become very desirable among error collectors. A broad strike is another mint-made error that specialists enjoy finding. When the retaining collar fails during striking, the coin expands beyond its normal diameter, creating a distinctive appearance that cannot be duplicated by ordinary circulation damage. Collectors also look for die cracks, die chips, retained cuds, and occasionally clipped planchets. Die cracks appear as raised lines because the working die itself developed fractures during production. Larger die breaks can create raised areas known as cuds, while clipped planchets occur when the blank was improperly cut before striking. It is equally important to understand what usually does not increase value. Scratches, dents, harsh cleaning, polishing, corrosion, environmental damage, drilled holes, and altered surfaces are considered post-mint damage. These problems generally reduce collector appeal because they occurred after the coin left the United States Mint. Many experienced collectors actually prefer naturally aged coins with original surfaces over examples that have been cleaned to appear bright. Cleaning often leaves microscopic hairline scratches that permanently affect the coin's appearance. Originality remains one of the most respected qualities in numismatics. Another important factor is strike quality. Not every 1979 quarter was struck with the same amount of pressure. Some display sharp lettering, bold hair details, and crisp eagle feathers, while others appear slightly weak because the dies had begun to wear. Strongly struck examples are often more attractive to collectors. Professional grading services such as PCGS and NGC evaluate coins for authenticity, preservation, and recognized mint errors. Certified examples often command greater confidence among buyers because they have been examined by trained specialists using consistent grading standards. The final coin in today's video is one of the most historically important Washington quarters ever released into circulation, the 1965 Washington quarter without a mint mark. At first glance, it may look like just another worn quarter that has spent decades in cash registers, vending machines, and coin jars across America. Many people see the date, notice the heavy wear, and assume it is worth only 25 cents. However, experienced collectors know that the 1965 issue represents one of the biggest turning points in the history of United States coinage. Even a dirty, scratched, and heavily circulated example deserves a careful examination because this was the first year of a completely new chapter for the Washington quarter. The year 1965 was a time of enormous change in the United States. The country was experiencing economic growth, social change, and an increasing demand for circulating coins. At the same time, the value of silver continued to rise. Americans had begun removing silver coins from circulation because the metal inside them was becoming more valuable than their face value. As millions of silver quarters disappeared into collections and savings jars, the United States Mint faced a serious coin shortage. To solve this problem, Congress passed the Coinage Act of 1965, one of the most significant pieces of legislation in modern American numismatic history. This law permanently changed the composition of the quarter. Beginning in 1965, circulating Washington quarters were no longer struck in 90% silver. Instead, they were produced using a copper core bonded between outer layers of copper nickel, creating the familiar clad quarter still used today. Because this transition marked the end of the silver era for everyday quarters, the 1965 issue has remained one of the most talked about dates among collectors. Like other Philadelphia circulation coins of the period, the 1965 Washington quarter carries no mint mark. In fact, from 1965 through 1967, the United States Mint intentionally removed mint marks from circulating coins in an effort to discourage collectors from saving newly issued coins during the nationwide coin shortage. Therefore, the absence of a mint mark on a 1965 quarter is completely normal and should never be mistaken for an error. The obverse features the familiar portrait of George Washington, designed by John Flanagan. Across the top appears Liberty, while "In God We Trust" is located to the left of Washington's portrait. The date 1965 appears beneath the bust. Although the design remained unchanged, the metal beneath it had changed forever. Turn the coin over and you'll find the classic heraldic eagle reverse. The eagle spreads its wings while holding arrows and olive branches, representing both national strength and peace. The inscriptions "United States of America, E Pluribus Unum," and $quarter surround the design. This reverse continued on Washington quarters until the launch of the state quarters program in 1999. One simple way to identify a clad quarter is by examining its edge. Unlike pre-1965 silver quarters, a normal 1965 clad quarter displays a visible copper-colored stripe along the edge. This stripe reveals the pure copper core sandwiched between the outer copper-nickel layers. Many beginning collectors use this quick test to distinguish silver quarters from clad issues. Although the Mint produced well over 1 billion 1965 Washington quarters, most entered circulation immediately and remained in daily use for decades. As a result, heavily worn examples are extremely common today. Washington's hair may appear nearly smooth, the eagle's feathers often lose detail, and scratches, rim nicks, and contact marks are frequently seen on circulated coins. Despite the enormous mintage, collectors continue searching 1965 quarters because certain mint-made errors have made this date especially interesting. Perhaps the most famous possibility is the extremely rare 1965 quarter struck on a silver planchet. During the transition from silver to clad coinage, a very small number of leftover silver blanks from 1964 are believed to have been accidentally struck using 1965 dies. These transitional errors are among the most valuable modern Washington quarters and have sold for impressive prices at major auctions after professional authentication. Collectors also search for off-center strikes, where the blank planchet shifted before being struck. Depending on how much of the design remains visible, these dramatic errors can command strong collector interest. Another popular category includes doubled die errors. Genuine doubled dies result from the die-making process and can produce noticeable doubling on the lettering, date, or design elements. Specialists carefully inspect Liberty, "Indiana God We Trust," and the date under magnification. Additional mint-made errors include broad strikes, clipped planchets, die cracks, die chips, and retained cuds. Each of these errors occurred during the manufacturing process inside the mint and differs completely from ordinary circulation damage. It is important not to confuse mint errors with post-mint damage. Heavy scratches, corrosion, harsh cleaning, polishing, filing, or environmental damage generally reduce collector value because they occurred after the coin entered circulation. Authentic mint errors require careful study and, in many cases, professional certification. Original surfaces are highly respected among collectors. Many people believe cleaning an old coin improves its appearance, but experienced numismatists usually recommend leaving old coins untouched. Cleaning can permanently remove natural surface texture and leave microscopic scratches that reduce collector appeal. Professional grading services such as PCGS and NGC evaluate authenticity, assign numerical grades, and identify recognized mint errors. Certified examples often sell more easily because buyers have greater confidence in their authenticity and condition. When discussing value, realism is essential. Most circulated 1965 Washington quarters are worth only face value or a modest collector premium. However, exceptional mint state examples, beautifully preserved coins with original luster, and especially authenticated transitional silver errors or major mint-made errors can achieve significantly higher prices in the collector market. Values always depend on rarity, condition, certification, and current demand, and should be viewed as estimates rather than guarantees.